Hello, Lorna.
Hey, go on, how are you?
Doing good. You are the librarian right now here at the Kristine Mann Library, right?
Yeah, I've been the head librarian since 2008. I was hired on April Fools.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Right when the world was collapsing.
Just before the market crashed, yeah. But luckily, the library is still here, and it's just been an amazing experience to get this job and to be able to use my background in transpersonal psychology and library school. So when I was a kid, I worked at the library when I was going to high school, and then I worked at the libraries when I was going to college. And then I moved to New York City to finish my education, and I had a job at the New York Public Library, Barnard College Library, Columbia Library. So I guess I've always kind of been surrounded by books.
What is transpersonal psychology?
It's what we call the modern version of holistic psychotherapy, mind, body, spirit. So you focus on all of the different aspects of the psyche and the soul, in addition to, the mind. We believe that it's all interconnected, and that kind of really integrates smoothly with like Jungian psychology too, because Jung believed that the soul was a really, really important aspect, and that the psyche is so fascinating and complex that you really have to look beyond just the cognitions, and the biology. It's more than that. So.
What was your first memory?
I was down in the basement trying to figure out what was going on in the building, because when I first got here I didn't have a clue, and I spent a few months searching every nook and cranny, and I found all these silk screens by Maud Oakes, who was a very good friend of Joseph Campbell, tucked behind an old bookcase, and brought them upstairs and started to research what they were. And it was just so amazing to discover who she was and how she made them and what their significance was. It was...
So these paintings right here?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I actually... I framed and matted all of them because they were just in a cardboard box, they were in jeopardy of being lost.
Oh, so this is a memory of being in the building.
Yeah, definitely.
What was your first memory? If you don't want to share it, that's all right.
The other thing I remember was running into Jay Sherry down in the basement. He was searching for an archive on Beatrice Hinkle, who I didn't have a clue who she was. But I've learned over time she was the very first female analyst in the whole United States, and she was before Kristine Mann and all of them. And anyway, so I discovered the scholar down in the sub basement looking for papers. And I at first was terrified because I thought I was down there by myself. But then it turned out that he was a local high school teacher who has actually gone on to get trained to be an analyst. He's published many really amazing books, and he's now the chairman of our library board. But, back then I discovered how very intense and focused some of the scholars were that came here. And he never gave up. I mean, it took him, I'm going to say 10 years beyond that before he started publishing. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, he was just a high school teacher back then, but with dreams of, more. So that was pretty cool.
Nice. Okay, who is Kristine Mann that the library is named after?
Okay.
And the two other people associated with...
So Kristine Mann used to be a professor of literature at Vassar, and she and her student, Eleanor Bertine, went hiking one summer in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and they brought with them this very new book that they had just discovered. It was The Psychology of the Unconscious, translated by Beatrice Hinkle. And while they were reading it, it blew their minds, and they decided then and there that they were going to go to medical school and become Jungian analysts, and they did. And when they first started training with Dr. Jung, they took a class with him in England. I think it was 1923 or 1925, where he was talking about the dreams of Wolfgang Pauli, very early quantum physicist. Anyway, they met Dr. Harding there, who was a British doctor, and the three of them just became instant friends. And she came back to the United States with them, and the three of them decided to start the whole Jungian movement. First they were doing salon in their apartments and had people come over and they'd sit around and philosophize and talk about these new ideas. And then later, as they became analysts, they would start to teach and analyze people. They started, what we see here in the Jung Center grew out of all their efforts. So they started the Analytical Psychology Club of New York based on the club that was in London and Zurich. And it was an opportunity for analysts and people being analyzed to meet together for educational purposes. And they had a lot of workshops and classes. And over time, they used to meet at hotels and conference centers near here. But over time, but not till 1974, they were able to sell Dr. Harding's house up in Maine. She had a summer house. They went up every summer. And they used the money to buy the building. But this is way before. Kristine Mann died in 1945 from cancer, and it was very sad. But she was just really lovely. She was a Swedenborg, which is a very interesting Christian sect that focuses on service, and her father was a very famous Swedenborg minister. And Kristine was involved in the early women's health movement before Planned Parenthood. She knew Margaret Sanger. She was involved with the YWCA and helping women, working class women, get health benefits and information about well-being and childbirth and all that. So she was just like a really lovely person, and part of the triad of the three women who started everything going in the U.S. And then when she died in 1945, she was a bit older than the other two. They named the library after her, and it was started with her collection of books, and over the years they've just added and added to it. And in 1974 they moved into this building, and the library finally got its own space. It used to be like a cupboard in the hotel down the street. It was pretty amazing. And so anyway...
Best library I've ever been to. What would you consider your origin story?
Well, I was born in Berkeley, California, to an artist and an engineer, and they moved to Boulder, Colorado. So I think growing up out west really kind of formed a lot of the things that I'm really fascinated in, and growing up with parents who sponsored foreign students from all over the world while I was growing up introduced me to every freaking culture and food and ideas and stories. I was always really interested in stories and folk tales and fairy tales. I was one of those kids that was reading The Hobbit when I was 7 years old.
Great book.
Yeah. So I was just like mad about books. I was one of those kids that was really quiet. I could draw and read, and that's about it. And I was very shy, but it kind of worked out in the long run, because being a quiet person who thinks a lot and reads a lot can become a good therapist and a good librarian. So it worked out good.
What do you feel? What from this building has impacted you? Like, what has you? What part of you has been osmosis from this building?
You know, being in an old building like this with all this amazing energy and climbing the stairs up to the top floor, which is always my favorite floor in any building, is the top floor, and being able to look out the windows and actually see the sky in Midtown. We're so lucky, and I can open the windows and breathe air. And the space up here, we had a lot of freedom to create a very welcoming, homey space. So half the stuff in here is from my house. And other things are things I've collected for the library that would be in my house, but I brought them here instead, like carpets, furniture, plants, art. Like I found that here, but the art in the stairwell is by a good friend of mine, some woodcuts he did. And then the art in the front room, all those collages, are the neighbor of a very old friend of mine, and she gifted them to me and to the library. So, you know, we've been able to create just such a really a sanctuary up here. So when I'm here, even though my parents grew up in the city and I used to live here, it's hard for me to be in the city anymore. It's changed a lot and the energy has changed a lot, but to be able to be here when I'm here during the day and then go home to the country is a nice balance. Because once I'm in the library, and I'm sure you've noticed, the energy is just really nice.
Very serene. It is very, especially coming in from Midtown, it is very different, and walking up those stairs, and it does feel very comforting.
Plus, like you're entering a new world, like, or an old world.
An old world.
Yeah.
Like a cave in the sky, a mountain cave. What hopes do you have for this library?
I hope that they continue to honor Carl Jung's, meaning that they don't go too mod on them. Like, we like books, and we like to hold articles and papers in our hands, and we like to sit at a table and do research and not just always be on a computer. And I know that they want to do some podcasts and some YouTube films about the library or about different parts of the collection, which I think will be lovely to get people in here. But I'm hoping that they continue to have a real on-site, what do they call it, brick and mortar
analog
experience. Yeah. And I'm very excited
fleshy
when I found out that they're going to reopen to the public in September. And even if we have to wear a mask or crank up the air purifier, this is the kind of place that's never like really super crowded. So you get to have individual attention here, and I think it's going to be fine. I can't wait.
What joys are you looking for in retirement?
Well, I'm not going to be able to retire. I don't have a trust fund or a pension.
We might rob a bank. I'm joking.
Yeah, in my background we have Vikings, pirates, and witches.
Yeah.
So I'm hopefully, if everything goes next week, I'm not sure yet, I'm buying a little house on the top of a mountain that's off the grid, meaning solar and wood stove and propane and no electricity and no TV and no cell phone, nothing like that. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be really more open to creating more art and to garden. I want to keep bees and have a root cellar. But I'm going to work. I'm going to have to work. But I have my Vermont license, so I'm hoping I can maybe do something in the psych field a little bit. But I want to do something really creative. So we'll see what happens.
Any creative ideas yet, or you don't want to let out the hat?
Like maybe empowering seniors, maybe Deaf Cafe again. Dream work, stuff like that. But then I might maybe work at the food co-op and bring home some food and work at the bookstore.
Can't get away from those books.
I know.
Who were some of the impactful people that you met at this library?
People that I've actually met in person. Sonu Shamdasani, who helped get the Red Book off the ground, was really a lovely person, really sensitive and brilliant. Stanton Marlin, who writes a lot about alchemy and is located in Pittsburgh. He's been here a few times. He's really amazing. I've met just people that come on a regular basis. I'm not going to mention their names, but it seems as if almost every person who comes here has something to offer. They're creative, they're thoughtful, they're striving for meaning. It's just been an amazing experience, and almost everybody that I've met here has helped to transform my life, my personal experience. And I wish I could have met some of the ones that haven't come in, like Robert Johnson, who I love. I did meet James Hillman, so that was pretty cool. But it's the kind of place where whoever comes in is going to be amazing. It attracts that kind of person.
How do you feel Jungian psychology has helped people?
Well, I think it's one of the few therapies that actually encourages and empowers a person to discover who they truly are and to honor their soul's longing for actualization. And it's the kind of therapy that could apply to anybody. You don't have to I mean, if you can find a sliding scale, that's probably the hardest thing for most people for therapy, to pay for it. But they do have a sliding scale clinic, and there are people who are willing to work with people who don't have a massive amount of money. But it's the kind of thing that, like, if you're a creative person or anybody who's just starting to question, like, the purpose of their life, this is, like, the place to come. And because they do explore, like, they try to explore as many cultures, as many paths as possible that would embrace more, diversity, which I think is really, really pretty exciting, and it's starting to happen. Yay.
So you said Robert Johnson earlier. What was a book that you read from him that you really
God, the
liked?
first book, I was in analysis with my Jungian analyst, and we were doing dream work, and his book, Inner Work, is so good. But his other stuff, like finding your goal, your inner gold, like working with projections, it's so brilliant. His work about men and women, he's just probably one of the most thoughtful, elegant, easy to access ideas. But yeah, Inner Gold and Inner Work.
Yeah.
Those are my favorites.
Any other things you'd like to talk about?
I'm not one to talk a lot, but I'm just hoping that more people will take the time to discover this place and just to figure out for themselves, like, where it takes them, because you just never know. You never know. I've created some amazing, phenomenal work based on some of the ideas that I've explored with people here, and doing shadow work is, like, really, really, really good.
Which of the 7 sins do you feel most aligned with?
Maybe sometimes a little bit of envy, because my whole life I've always been paycheck to paycheck, and just working and struggling through nonprofits, because I never cared about the big bucks until now. Now I'm old and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? But I'm glad I took the path I did, and it all ended up here, so it worked out good.
Thank you, Lorna. You're a very powerful and outwardly composed person.
Thank you. Meanwhile, I'm a jittery mess. Anyway, take care.